To learn more about experimenting, both in life and work, today I'm talking to organizational psychologist and I would say experimentalist Lennard Toma. He wrote a book about his experimentations in the marketing and IT company Keytoe, titled 99 Problems But the Boss Ain't One. Lennard also co-founded a spin-off, KeytoeY, with the sole purpose to inspire and awaken people to new ways of working and flourishing, while also experimenting, I think, much more in the process. For this, amongst other things, they have performed in theaters, which is kind of unusual, and they launched a podcast titled Hoe Dan, which translates to, okay, then how? Lennard, I'm very curious to ask you a whole bunch of questions. Thanks a lot for being here with me today.
Yeah, thanks for the invitation.
Yes. Before we dive in, Lennard, because I think it's difficult because you don't have one sole purpose. It's quite spread out. Could you give us a short introduction on you as a person and maybe a little bit background on the businesses that you've been involved with?
Yeah. So maybe I have kind of one overcompensating purpose, which is to try to spark wisdom. So my why is to break through mindsets so that I can spark wisdom. So I don't have the wisdom or something, but I think I can shift people's minds about certain things, and then hopefully that will spark some kind of wisdom within them, and then they see it in a different light or they see it in a different way.
Yeah.
And hopefully that makes things a little bit better. Yeah, so basically I was studying psychology, went into this organizational psychology, stumbled upon Ricardo Semler with Keytoe, the Brazilian company that did it in a quite different way. And kind of my whole world ideas about work turned upside down. And I thought, this is what I want to do. Try to make organizations totally different, where the happiness of the employee is at number one.
Yeah.
And see how it goes from there. Also because a lot of the research about in organizational psychology about motivation, etc., basically hints towards that direction, but doesn't go that far as what he did.
Yeah.
So I started at the company Keytoe, which was basically 7 people then. So an organizational psychologist on 7 people was a bit of an overkill. But I was able to be a project manager for websites, and in the meantime meddle with the organization, and they gave me that freedom. And then I just started making steps, so make it more transparent, and the decision making power to the people, then colleagues that determine each other's salary, then people firing each other even, which just eventually happened sometimes. And then I also got the question because I was blogging about it, and then I had the podcast, and I was already writing that first book, 99 Problems. So I got a bit of attention from outside of Keytoe, and then I got questions from other companies like, well, it's nice that you did it at Keytoe, but can you do it somewhere else too? And then I was like, yeah, why not? Because I was already in Keytoe making the transition that we have freedom to work, of course, where you want and how you want and when you want, but also what you do. So if you want to, instead of doing marketing, do organizational advice or consulting or whatever, then that's fine. So I had to be my own example, of course. So I said, well, I'm going to do that and try to make money off that kind of business. And then KeytoeY started.
Yes.
And then I did all kinds of, because I don't like, I'm getting pushed mostly in this corner of, okay, you're an organizational psychologist and you do something with a little bit of free organizing, or how you will call it, self-steering. I'm not going. So
self-directing teams. I don't know if that's a good translation.
So a little bit of the modern way of working. This is basically where I get pushed in, but I feel like a generalist, or somebody who likes to do different stuff or has different interests. I like to do marketing as well. I like to write. I like to do podcasts. Started a theater show. We did that 2 times now, which was just stupid, but was fun to do.
Yeah.
Because why not? Basically, that was basically the question. And also we started an online course platform.
Yeah, I want to ask you about that. Yeah, definitely.
I wanted one. And so we did that, and so this basically goes on, and with different things I like to do, and then I'm a little bit impatient, I guess, or I cannot do the same thing all the whole time, so I change course.
Yeah.
And that's what I like to do, basically.
Yeah.
Long story.
I can relate. There's a lot of things I recognize also in my work. I would say probably I'm not that as extreme as you. I haven't learned to be as extreme perhaps, but yeah, I do enjoy doing different things and mixing things up and going outside of the beaten path.
Yeah.
I have a question. Both at Keytoe and also KeytoeY, you've experimented a lot, and it was really, I would probably, for most people at least, it's kind of a rather unusual way of conducting business. What did you learn about yourself when you were working in this highly explorative and experimental fashion?
That I really enjoy experimenting on people.
Yeah.
So no, so for me, Keytoe and KeytoeY is basically my playground, or a little bit of my doing stupid stuff because they let me, and it had positive effects every time I did that. So I got basically encouraged by doing it again and again that this was the right way to go, and that of course there were people that didn't like it, or that fell off the boat, so to speak. Yeah. But the majority of the people really liked it, and we got more people that were enthusiastic about the way we worked. So it basically boosted my self-confidence within that thing. And I think it also just made me realize that I really like to experiment or try new things, and seek out the limits, basically, or the boundaries, and then step over it a little bit and see what happens. Yeah. And there's so many things that basically in life, or what we humans basically do, or I think, is that we think certain things need to go in a certain way, but if you ask enough questions, then you see that some things are really stupid, actually. Yeah. And I like to see if there's another door to open and another way to go. And so yeah, that's really nice. That's really, I really like to do that stuff. Yeah. And also a little bit challenging myself, because I think I also had moments and things where I'm pretty afraid to do them, or not really sure about myself. Then I kind of act sure, like yeah, this is the way we should do it. But inside I'm like, I have no clue what's gonna happen when we do this. Yeah. And so, but I think, yeah, okay, let's see how it goes. So I'm a little bit explorative, I think. Yeah. I don't know. But
did everything go well? I'm sure there were. No, I was going to say, I'm sure there's going to be quite some examples where things don't plan out as you thought they would.
No, and that's exactly what the first book was about, because you have a lot of books that say something about, okay, we're a self-organizing team or whatever, and this is it works perfectly, or it works really great, blah 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 blah. And I was like, well, we had a lot of problems, and when I talked to other organizations that were trying the same thing, they were or a step further or a little bit behind, they all had the same shit, basically. And so I was like, oh well, that's really interesting that nobody really talked about that actually yet, or I hadn't read it in a book yet, and I kind of read all those books that had to do with self-organizing stuff, so, or self-management. Yeah. So I was like, okay, maybe that's what I wanted to. This is also one of the experiments. Can I write a book? I don't know, because it's a long project. Maybe I'm too impatient. I don't know, but I'm gonna try. Yeah. And I didn't have the subject until then. I was like, okay, maybe this is the subject. So that's why I wrote 99 problems, but the bottom one. It's basically all about the problems. It's not really a really happy story, because it's basically all the shit we went in when trying to do this way of working. Yeah. And the boss wasn't really, it kind of sometimes was a problem, actually, but but eventually not anymore because there weren't any bosses anymore.
Yeah.
But we had a lot of problems, and I thought that was an interesting story to share also. So yeah, so different things went wrong. We tried different ways of decision making. So first I was like, well, I looked a little bit at this Ricardo Semler. He talked about democratic ways of decision making. So I was like, okay, we're going to put in democracy as the way to make decisions instead of the two founders to make the decision. So
Yeah.
okay, I got everybody on board, and then we tried it, and it was like a disaster because I didn't set the rules yet, which I in the end should have, but they wouldn't work anyway, on when to do the decision-making process like that, because we're making websites. If the button needs to go from green to orange or something, are we going to democratically vote on that? Or can the person himself decide that? This is such a small thing, you know?
Yeah.
And eventually we were almost had to make democratic decisions about everything. That was nuts. So
yeah. And it takes a huge amount of time.
Yes, and also, what are you going to do? Do you need to do it like if 80% is for this decision, we're going to do it, or 100% or 51%? And what if you have three options and 40% is the majority?
Yeah.
Then 60% doesn't agree. How are you going to deal with that? And so that was like, no, this doesn't work at all.
So how did you solve that problem?
We basically stopped doing that, and then we went into this decision-making vacuum, and I quickly thought of something else to do, and that was like we did a management team meeting with 5 fixed people with the biggest mouth, so I was one of them, and then we had 2 open seats.
Yeah.
And so the open seat, everybody could, like interns, they could be in the open seats if they volunteered to be there. And then this management team would make the decisions. But then, so it first started off great because we went into the strategic way of and decision makings in a big way. And then, but as time progressed, what the other colleagues did was they said, well, I need new pens or whatever, but the management team has to decide. So every little decision went to the management team, and we were like, what are we doing here? This is insane. So we basically stopped doing that as well. And then I stumbled upon the advice process, decision-making process, which was outlined in the book of Frederick Laloux, Reinventing Organizations. And there it said something like, okay, this is the advice process. It works like this. Everybody can make a decision, but you need to ask advice to the people that are influenced by the decision. So I always give a stupid example about painting a wall. So if I need to paint that wall behind me, then I need to ask advice about the people that are regularly sitting here and looking at that wall. And so, and then the funny thing is that I need to get their advice and be a grown-up about it, but I can make my own decision eventually. So if I say I want it blue, I want to make it blue. And then I get advice like people saying, no, you have to make it red or purple or whatever, or no, it needs to stay white. Then I can say, well, thank you for your advice, but I'm still going to paint it blue. Yeah. And then, but I'm the responsible guy now. Or I have the responsibility on my shoulders now. So I have to get the paintbrush and the paint, or I have to get a colleague to do it as well, or hire a painter, etc. Yeah. And if shit happens, then if paint falls on the floor, I'm the one to have to clean it up. And the most funny part, I think, about the advice process is that if a decision has been made and executed, the next day another person can come in and do the advice process again and change the whole thing again. And so we had a wall within Keytoe, which in 2 years' time was painted over like 5 times. And you can say, well, that's very inefficient or something, but it was very effective because at some point, people are not going to paint the wall again because they think it's foolish. But it also helps that people aren't whining anymore because nobody can complain about anything.
Exactly, they have to take action and become responsible.
Yeah, if you complain, why are you complaining? Go fix it. Go to the advice process and go fix it. And also, the painting is maybe a bad analogy, but if you have certain processes within your organization, then you can see that as the different layers of paint, basically. and with layers of paint you hide certain stuff, so that doesn't help. But if you have processes, then you can say, okay, I make a little bit of an improvement, then somebody else comes and makes a little bit of an improvement, and then you go like that.
Yeah.
So that really works. So,
Yeah.
and that's what still within Keytoe is the decision-making process. So
the advice, I'll be researching that. Yeah, that's interesting. I also like the examples. Another question, follow up on the previous one. What did you learn about your colleagues and your clients when engaged in this experimental way of working? How did they respond?
Yeah, so a lot of people are afraid to lose control, which is, I think, oftentimes the illusion of control, because I don't think they really have control.
Yeah.
But they think they do.
Yeah.
I have to peel that down often, that like, are you really having control? Are you sure?
Yeah.
And then they suddenly come to the realization that they don't. And then I can say, well, let's try it in a different way and see how it goes.
Yeah.
And you have this thing in the Netherlands, of course, called omdenken, which is kind of like reverse thinking. And that's basically what I do, or I try to do with the clients or the people all the time. Like, okay, sometimes you have to, you set certain rules in order to prevent certain things. But if you do it the other way around, like you trust people more, then they're less likely to do the bad thing you are afraid that they will do. Yeah. So you see that within our company with the unlimited holidays, a lot of people are afraid that a lot of people will take a lot of holidays or something. But actually what happens is the reverse. People don't go on holiday as much. And we have another problem, which is one of the 99 problems. We have to kick them on vacation because they don't go. Yeah. Because they don't have days to make up at the end of the year, because it's unlimited. So what they will do is they're not going on vacation. So we had to rally up colleagues, that they say to other colleagues when they come in a little bit cranky, like, you're going to go on holiday right now or in a few weeks because this is not going well. Yeah. So you get different kinds of problems, and so doing the reverse oftentimes leads to different problems. But I kind of like those problems better than the other ones. So.
But I think in both cases, it really shows, both in the cases of the wall being repainted, but also in the cases of people staying and not taking their holidays, is that they feel happy, they feel engaged, and they're really an active part of the team. That's correct, right?
Yeah. Basically, what we try to do and still try to do is make them feel they own the company. Yeah. That the company is theirs, not because they have shares or they don't, but just because they're there and they can make decisions on their own. Yeah. And they can know everything they want to know. So everything is transparent. If they want to know the salaries or the costs, they can know, to make their own decisions even better, and feel more ownership, which also leads to more motivation, of course, because if it's your own baby, you're going to work harder for it than if you're working for a CEO who gets all the money or something. You think, I'm working for him basically, and I don't want to do it. Yeah. So how did that work in practical terms? Because indeed, this transparency, I think, is crucial. Yeah. How did that work with sharing information? I mean, I read a little bit about it. What you guys do, you have a dashboard where everyone can see all the information. So dashboard, but also, we don't have set functions or set roles. So if people like the financial part of an organization, they're interested, then basically they can learn more. They can go into the accounting software basically and see everything that's going on there. And what they usually do is translate that to the people that are less inclined to know or maybe have less of the knowledge to do something with it. They translate it for them. So there's a lot of knowledge sessions where the people share the information on what is the current status with the financial department, if it's about finance, for instance, and so on. So you see that a lot of if you have a large enough group, then and that could be from 20 people or something, but also less sometimes. You always have somebody that's more interested in certain topics. Yeah. They tend to dive in. They tend to translate that to the rest of the colleagues and tell the rest of the colleagues what's going on, and then that's basically it. Yeah. So we just say, well, you can look at anything you want and it's there. We have a Google Drive where you can scroll through all the files.
Yeah.
To what, and if you need help on where to find certain things, well, we will tell them to you, and there you go. So yeah, basically it's very simple, but also what you get there is that people, especially with making salaries transparent, was that people find it a little bit, they think it's a little bit frightening, because what do other people think of their salary? So beforehand, you have to make sure that the salaries are a little bit aligned and a little bit fair already. So if there's a big gap between certain colleagues, but you don't have a good explanation for it, then it goes to hell, basically, if you make it transparent.
Yeah.
But we had already, it was already pretty much fair. And then we just had to do it. And then eventually some colleagues were hesitant before, but when it happened, they saw that everybody was basically very relaxed. A lot of colleagues don't even look at the salaries because they don't care. Really. Yeah. They know they can, and that's the really important thing about transparency, is more about having the freedom or perception that you can find the information, have the information, and really looking at it. Yeah. Because a lot of people don't know the salary, but they know they can look at it. So that's all the thing they need, basically, which is really funny.
And how did it work, or how does it work when somebody wants to change his or her salary? They can just change it in the system, or do they have to go through this advice process of getting approval for it?
Yeah, so what we also said with the advice process, which I didn't explain just now, but if a decision is too big for yourself to make, that you feel it's too big for yourself to make, you can start a committee, and that committee also works through the advice process. So all these committees are voluntarily to be in or to get out of. You don't have to be in it necessarily, and you can be in it a little while and then go out of it again and join it again. It doesn't really matter. So they basically erected a salary committee, and I think sometimes 5, sometimes 7, sometimes 10 people, sometimes 3 people were in there, and they got the advice from other colleagues about the salary budget at first. So what kind of salary budget do we have, and how are we going to increase it, depending on the numbers, and maybe how many sales we think we're going to get in the next year or something. And then they decide, okay, this is the salary budget. They ask advice to the other colleagues. We think it's going to be this. What do you think? Then, of course, the financial people will have their say. But the salary committee decides in the end. They say, okay, this is going to be it. And then they communicate it. And then the next round basically is, okay, who gets what kind of raise? What do we think is fair? And then they also go and ask advice to different colleagues from, what do you think of this colleague? What do you think of that colleague? And so on. And then they tell it to the people. So there's no negotiation space, and you can't negotiate for yourself. Also, if you're in the committee and it's your salary that's being discussed, you have to shut up. You can't say anything, because we don't want people that have more negotiation skills to have the upper hand. So so we make it level the playing field, and make sure that nobody can negotiate. So the committee decides. And if you don't agree with other, you can join the committee, then don't complain. Go join the committee and say how we need to do it. And if the committee wants to do it in a different kind of way, not decide the salary budget and then giving out the salaries, they can decide that they want to do it differently. That's fine.
So the question, as the devil's advocate, I'm sure you've had this question before. Doesn't all of this, for instance, that everyone has the freedom to learn everything they want, or pursue any interest they have, or take any days off, which, as you shared already, they don't really, but all this explorative and experimental freedom, doesn't it lead into like stalling of the actual work that needs to get done, or is that not the case?
Sometimes, but most people just work. So if you go and see the office looks a little bit weird, because we have instruments there, because people like to play certain instruments in between breaks, and so they can, if they want it, they can buy a certain thing or put it down there. But if you go there and you just see people working, and this is just those things, everybody knows that we need to hold up the business in order to have salaries and make the company or grow if we want to grow, which we oftentimes didn't want to do anyway. But
to sustain the business, they take
so we have
responsibility.
Yeah, so we have basically one rule to rule them all, which is make sure your clients are and your colleagues are and stay happy.
Yeah.
And happy is like a big word, right? So and if you can keep those two in balance, it's fine. So that means also that as a group, we need to make sure that the colleagues or that the clients are getting what they want, of course.
Yeah.
And we need clients, because else our colleagues won't have salaries, so they won't be happy as well. So that basically, so we can't all the time be focusing on organization. It's one of the things I did mostly because that was kind of my job basically at the end. I tried to experiment with that, and I also got some sort of sales or marketing out of that, which really led to being colleagues and clients being happy again. So they let me, but sometimes they thought it was really annoying too. So that's also one of the reasons I started KeytoeY, because at a certain point they got a little bit frustrated with, oh, here comes another experiment from Lennard again. People get fed up with it eventually.
Yeah.
And so in KeytoeY, I wanted to start a little bit of my own company and do it a little bit my own. And I went even further. So instead of colleagues hiring each other and colleagues setting each other's salary, we said we're not going to hire anybody. People can hire themselves and set their own salary themselves and their own preconditions, and we'll sign blindly. So that was actually happened. So the first people and we didn't know what was going to happen, but there's this maybe this is good to tell. So also what helps in the experimental kind of way is a fuck it mentality, as I like to call it. And so we said, okay, we're not afraid that the business goes bankrupt. We don't care. We'll see what happens. It's actually quite interesting. Then I already told that with Keytoe, like when I was like a first or second year within Keytoe, I told this to the founders. I said, I'm not afraid that it goes bankrupt. I'm actually quite interested to see what happens. And they were saying like, what are you saying? You want this company to go bankrupt? Are you nuts? And I'm like, no, I'm not. I don't want it to go bankrupt, but I'm actually curious if it happens. I'm not afraid of it. And eventually they went into this mode as well. And so what happens when we introduce that you can hire yourself kind of thing is that the first people we told this to that wanted to work with us, they said, oh no, this is too crazy, I'm out. So they didn't. So it was a filter. And then the first person to actually do it, he's still with us, is Stijn. And he gave himself, he made his own contract. We said to him, you have to make your own contract. You can, if you want to know anything beforehand, we are transparent before you join the company. So you can know everything, what I earn, what we have for costs, etc. You can know anything. And then you can make up your own salary, whatever you like, and you can change it every month if you want. See what you want to do. And this is our experiment. We don't know what's going to happen, what we'll see. But if you say you want a Ferrari and you want to make like 100,000 euros a month, and we don't have the money, then at the end of the month, we're going to see with the money we have, how we're going to divide it, and it's going to be a fair process. So these are the game rules, basically, and good luck. And so he gave a contract. I signed blindly, and at the end, I was curious what he gave himself, and he said, well, I gave myself minimum wage.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so that was like, I said, what? You could give yourself anything. Why would you give yourself minimum wage? And he was really chill about it. He said, well, I know what you guys make. I know what's on the bank account. And I want to prove myself first and make sure I earn money for the company. And then I know I can, increase my wage after a few months if I'm doing all right, which he did.
Yeah.
But he started out minimum wage, which, so there you see kind of like, I call this the reciprocity kind of thing, where if you give so much trust to a person, that person will repay it instantly.
And they will
instead
not
of giving some people, if you have a big ass contract with all kinds of rules and regulations and certain stuff, then you feel beforehand that the company's maybe distrusting you.
Yeah.
And so what you want to do is get the most out of it. So you try to get more raises and you want to get more money, and because you think you're being screwed. But if you do it the other way around, we said, the company is basically yours. Do whatever you want. And then this person gave himself. And this also happened with interns, because we did there too. We said you can set your own intern fee.
Yeah.
And there was this girl who in their previous internship made €1,000 or something, and she referenced to that. Yeah, I made €1,000 in the last intern I did. I said, you can do that, but most interns get this a little bit around here, and you can decide on your own. So she gave herself eventually something like 375. So there's a way less compared to the 1,000. She could have said, I want 2,000. Didn't matter to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's how it goes, I guess.
So with responsibility, I think this is a nice intermediate conclusion. With responsibility and transparency, people really are inclined to take responsibility.
They will, because they feel like it's their own company. So they put their own self-interest below the company's interest because they like it so much.
Yeah.
And they have a certain feel towards it, or heart towards it, or something. They kind of they want to make sure the company does all right because of that.
Yeah.
And so we don't have to manage anything, because they and of course, I kind of overstate sometimes, but because you do need some kind of leadership, you do need leaders within the group. Mm-hmm. But that can vary constantly. It doesn't have to be one person.
Yeah.
It can vary, if a new person comes in, it's not, oh, you're the new guy, so you're not going to be the leader. No, that person can be the leader within a week. Yeah. Which is fine. And so that the situational leadership kind of thing is also very relevant. But you do need leaders in order to set certain goals, or to set certain targets, or make sure we go somewhere, and keep everybody a little bit, let's go, you're fired up and stuff. So
yeah, very, very interesting, Lennard. I appreciate the examples. Yeah, it's great stuff. You guys also started a university, which is another old experiment, Keytoe University, offering courses in modern business administration. What does that actually mean, modern business administration?
That's a good question.
I mean, I have an idea, but
well, I actually don't really know, but because so maybe a little bit of the story. So we have two kinds of sort of university. So we have Keytoe Academy, which is the online course platform, which is basically certain speakers that give out a video course. Yeah. And we have Keytoe University, which is actually I think in English it's called a private
Polytechnic University.
Yeah, particuliere hogeschool.
Yeah.
So you could you can get your bachelor's degree there, and you could this organization existed before Keytoe already. So which was based in Rotterdam, but we had a good connection with them because they give out modern business administration, or modern day business administration, as a bachelor degree. Mm-hmm. And so they went and joined, they got into our office, or our office building basically. And we don't have shares or whatever, but because we are organized this way, we kind of are one of the examples they use in their lectures, or in their in the whole program. And because it's also in our office, they can the students come in there and they can already check and see how weird or different it could be.
Yeah.
So that's a nice, it's a nice overlap, and we thought it was funny to have that as well. So that's also one of the things, you can decide what you want to do. So and now we have, of course, that university. We have a podcast studio. We make jingles, because why not? Because our colleagues like to make music, and then they make jingles to earn something out of it. Yeah. And we have like a former co-student of mine in psychology wanted to start on psychology practice, and he wanted to do it in a little bit of a different way, that people can set their own fee at the end of the session. Yeah. So and also a very low fee. So he wanted to make it, that people, people of all different kinds of backgrounds can come in more easily.
Yeah.
So you pay like from 40 euros for 1 hour and a quarter session, which is really not much money. If you normal psychologists you go to and you pay like 110 or something.
Yeah.
So, but you can, and then you can set the set. So you can also pay 110 there, but people can decide on their own. You know, those kinds of things. We're inspiring each other and helping each other there, because a lot of colleagues also went to him as a psychologist because they needed it. So it's a plus.
And for the students, can they set their own tuition fee, or how does that work?
I have I don't know. But we did set it as low as a normal, because it's a private thing. So the college doesn't get funds by the government, which, you know, if you have to go to like a bigger college, they get that, and they can set the fee very low, like an amount of 2,000 euros.
Yeah.
And then what we did though is say, okay, you can pay the 2,000 euros, or you can pay more like the regular fee. Yeah. But if you pay the 2,000 euros, you have to give some sort of value
Provide
to the
value.
company.
Yeah. Yeah.
Provide value to the company in some form or whatever. And we're not gonna check it and see, oh no, this is not really 2,000 or something, or the amount you need to give in. But they can basically say, well, I think I gave 2,000 or so, or more of value to the company.
Interesting. Is it in English or in Dutch, the program?
I think it's mostly in Dutch, but I think the lecturer sometimes does it in English as well. So I don't really know, actually. You have to go to their site to. So this is kind of the stupid thing. It's not really a big organization, but we do so many things that I have no clue what's happening sometimes.
Yeah.
And a lot of other colleagues don't as well. But it's fine. We like it that way. So.
And it also inspires you or incentivizes you to engage and keep engaged with each other.
Yeah.
On your personal website, Lennard, you mentioned that you enjoy the new and the unknown, and I do too, very much. But what about routines and habits in life and work? And that's actually also something you mentioned before. What relates to this is that at some point your colleagues were like, another experiment. They got a little bit tired of it. So what about routines and habits? And doesn't continuous experimentation and reshuffling of the cards ultimately results in chaos and instability? What are your thoughts on this?
Good question. I actually think that routine and is actually very important in a person's life.
Yeah, me too.
Because then, especially the smaller things like brushing your teeth, certain things like that. If you look at it in a macro way in your whole life, then it takes a lot of time in your whole life. So you better do it in a good way, like those, or having dinner with family or something. You know, if you can make that a little like 1% extra, then in your whole life, or better than in your whole life, it's gonna have a long-lasting effect, I think. So I think routines and certain stuff is very important, and I think you can have those, but I think you still need to question those things as well. So not everything needs to be better all the time, or more fun or crazy. But I think it's very healthy to just question certain things on why you do it the way you do it, and then if you and if the end result is, well, I do it because it has a good reason, then you can stay with the program and don't change anything. But then you know it's a good way to do it, and then you can let it rest. But if it's not really a good way, then I think it's fun for. I really like it though, but it's more my thing. I like to change it then, and some people still stay with their own bad habit or something. But I really like to shuffle things up, and I also have certain things that I don't really change. You know, I've like, I don't know, at home, you know, like I have just a little box where I put my keys in all the time. I don't change that. I don't know, you know, but works for me kind of. I don't really question it that much if it works or not, but it's fine. You know, it's a small thing. And then, you know, certain things you don't need to question all the time, but
well, it also provides structure.
Yes. So I think you need a certain structure or balance. You know, you need to balance out maybe those different types of changes with structure on the other hand. And for certain people, they need more structure than change. And for me, it's probably more to the other side a little bit. But also I have a very structured home because my wife is very, very structured.
Probably opposites attract. Yeah.
She's very, very much an opposite towards me, and she runs the house, of course. So basically, I have nothing to say when I get home, and so that's really funny. So I don't get to change, but I question certain things, of course, there too sometimes. But I need to choose and pick my battles, which is also one of the things I did within Keytoe. So I wasn't changing the whole time, but I did it step by step. And across the years, then it's you can look at it as big changes, of course.
Yeah.
But first, deciding upon each other's salary, I think I was doing that I was initiating that for like a year before we actually did it. So I was already planting seeds within, I think we're going to be a company where people can decide upon each other's salary or their own salary. People are like, no. Yeah. I just said that sometimes just for fun to see what reactions I got.
Yeah.
Until a certain point where I thought, okay, I think now we can do it. And then I hosted a meeting where I just said, everybody's going to decide upon his own salary from this point forward. And then the discussion went crazy. And then it settled down a little bit. The emotions settled down and people started asking questions. Yeah, why are the two founders actually doing it right now? Oh yeah, we don't know. Yeah, they don't like to do it. So that's one. And they don't have a good view about it. So maybe we should do it ourselves with each other. And then the colleagues decided on each other's salary, went out of that. And I was happy because I was, I set the bar like there, but they got to there, which was a big gap from the beginning, from the starting point. So then I was fine with that too. So
I think an important part here was asking why, because that's obviously a crucial element for productive change and also to provide an incentive for experimentation, I imagine.
Mm-hmm.
In your opinion, why is asking why so important, and when is the best time to ask why?
I think it's always the best time to ask why.
Yeah.
And it's very important because if you do it a couple of times, not just one time, because if you say, okay, why are you wearing that shirt? Yeah, because I like it. Okay. If you say, okay, fine, then you don't get to the bottom. No, why do you like wearing that shirt?
Yeah.
And why does it? And then you can say, well, it makes me feel more professional or better or whatever. Okay, why do you think that this shirt has an influence on how your professional self is being made? Then you get to the gist, right? And then people start questioning their own ways of thinking, and then you can shuffle that out or get them to acknowledge that it's really a good thing that they do it. So also for the transparency part and feel more involved within the company, for instance, or involved within certain things, it's really important to know why. Because if I just say, okay, these are the numbers, financial numbers, then you don't have any clue what they mean maybe. Mm-hmm. So I need to explain what is behind that and how it relates to whatever. And then you get a further thorough insight into things. And then you can make your own decisions better. Yeah. Because you just know more. So which is really important in organizations as well. And you get to just be more relaxed maybe in certain situations because you know the background
and you
story.
Are more aware of the full picture.
Yeah. And it's I always kind of use it as a catalyst to start changing things. So the 3 times why, at least, sometimes 5. Yeah. To get to the gist of why do we have certain things. And that's also one of the reasons why a lot of things changed within Keytoe, because I just was asking that question to the founders, why are you deciding everything? Yeah. And not let colleagues decide. And they were like, we don't know. This is the way things go.
Exactly. And we do a lot of things because we do the things this way, and certainly not a good reason to keep doing it.
Exactly. So that we kind of set out that there were certain answers that were bad, which were we're doing this way because it always happens this way. That's a bad answer because it doesn't really say anything and it doesn't really mean it's good. And then the second one is because I want to have control, which is oftentimes the illusion of control, but we don't really like that as well because we want to give people freedom. Yeah. And the last one is I don't know. So, if you have those 3 answers, it's you get a big red cross and we're going to change things. Yeah. So this is what we often did and sometimes do is we have the why sessions, and then people can jot down statements about things that are like why why do interns have a lower salary than normal colleagues, even if they do more or the same? And then we pick certain topics. Then we basically say, okay, which topics are we going to discuss? And then maybe we pick out 3, for instance, and then we're going to discuss them. And then everybody in the room can answer or try to answer.
Yeah.
And we need to try to answer it, because then we get to the bottom. So, for instance, with the interns, we had that question: why do they get less? And then we had a good answer, which was, we want to have as many interns as possible because we think education is very important, and we want to give a lot of people information about different ways of organizing, but also about the marketing or whatever. We want to educate because we think it's a very important thing for the society.
Yeah.
And in order to do that, we want to have a lot of interns, but we don't have the budget to give everybody a full salary. So we need to give them less, which they will accept. And then we can have a lot of interns. And so that was a really good answer. So we stick with it. But it could also have, turn the other way around, and then we gave them more, so.
But it's
really
a valid reason, and it's a reason if everyone buys into it and thinks it's valid, then
Yeah, and so people accept it more and feel, they can explain it to other people then, or they can explain to new interns why they get this way, instead of having their, that they're like, no, I don't actually know why, and that's a really good question, and stupid we didn't think of it, and you're right, or something. No, you want to have that little bit of the confidence then to tell somebody, which helps as well. So it's really a good exercise, I think.
Yeah, good stuff. Hey, you aim to inspire people to do things completely different. With this in mind, what 3 things would you recommend any listeners or viewers of this to try doing to shake things up? Give 3 tips for shuffling the cards.
Yeah, I think that everybody's working somewhere, and I think everybody needs to realize that the first thing is realize that you have also the power to change, because if you don't ask the questions, nothing's going to change. So ask the question, be a little bit bold about it, because you can change more things than you think you can change within the company, because a lot of things in most organizations, a lot of things aren't thought through. So if you ask those things and be serious about it, like really, why do we have that? And then go up the chain if you need to, in order to ask that question. And then people, if they're good leaders, they will really listen, and they will think, yeah, why do we do that actually? And then certain things will get in motion. So that really helps. Realizing that you have the power to change it, even if you don't have HR, organizational psychology experience or whatever. And the second thing I think is what really helps to make a change is posit it as a pilot or an experiment, because then people feel that they can turn back and do the things they did before. So if you always say, well, we're going to try this for a few months, and if it doesn't work, we're going to evaluate it, and if it doesn't work, we go back to what we did. Then most people will agree to doing that, because they feel they have a backup. Instead of it being, so that's and maybe a third thing, I can list multiple things, but I think a third thing, what really helps if you want to make sure that other people go with the change that you want to make, is make sure you understand what they desire or what they want. So what I did a lot of the times is just ask personal questions about, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to do later? What is frustrating you now? And how can you make your work better and more fulfilling or whatever? And then they tell me all kinds of things. And if I have a change in mind, like that I want to have, I can frame it in their perspective or in their interest. And that really helps, because then it's like I'm helping you with my change, basically, instead of I want my change and I want you to do it. No, this change is going to help you. And, it's kind of a sales technique, of course, but that really helps, because people will follow in. Oh, is it going to help me? Well, then I'm in, so. So that's really a nice one, I think. But then you have to, but that's very important there is that you really have to know the person. So ask not only how are you and the superficial stuff, but really get to know them on a personal level as well. Like, do you have a dog that you, I don't know, want to walk with more times in the day? Then maybe we need more freedom to and stop having fixed office times, which I like. Gives me freedom as well, but helps you with walking your dog. So.
Yeah, I imagine that it's like you said before, where we have to ask 3 or maybe even 5 times or something even more times why to really get to the bottom of it, and not assume things about people. I think that's always a big risk. Yeah.
Yeah, I do it. I assume things oftentimes too.
Sure,
then I slap myself,
Yeah.
I follow my face, and then hopefully I do it better the next time. But
Yeah.
we're all inclined to do that a little bit, which is fine, because stereotypes aren't there for they are there for a reason. Oftentimes they work.
Yeah.
But sometimes they don't. So yeah.
Another question, a different topic, back to the freedom of salary and also of payment, because as inspired by Ricardo Semler, we talked about this at Keytoe. People can determine their salaries, or at KeytoeY, and also when clients send out when they send out an invoice to clients. I read that between €0 and €9,000, they can fill out the amount that they will pay after the service is provided. So there's a lot of freedom there to the client, and also an incentive for you as a company to obviously provide value. What are the pros and cons of this approach? Because I'm sure there's also cons, right?
Yeah. So one of the major cons there is that and we changed it different times. So eventually we changed it. I don't know if you read this, that we did this one time, but eventually we don't do this anymore. We just say what we want them to pay, because the hurdle was that the companies felt it was really, really hard to decide at the end of the month or whatever what it's worth. Yeah. And they always felt that they were wrong, and so it was really stressful. And they actually had meetings. They organized meetings to decide these things. So we gave them extra work, and that wasn't our purpose at all. Yeah. So it was really annoying for them to do this. Yeah. So we said, okay, we're stopping this, because it's really this doesn't work for you. So, but we tried that, and it was the major con that which didn't work as well. So I think it was fun to do, and sometimes we do it in a certain different way. Like sometimes I give a talk. And then I say, okay, you have 2 options. You can give me this amount for the talk, or you can decide between this range after I gave the talk. And then they can decide, do I want the fixed fee, which is kind of in the middle or something, or do I want the variable fee, and decide at the end. Yeah. And that gives a little bit more freedom or something to. And
what happens then in most cases when they pick the variable one?
No, it differs. It's like, I don't know. I think it's a little bit 50-50. So, sometimes it depends on the person. If they are a little bit of a risk takers or something, they think it's funny to do that. Yeah. And I can see, they can see the joke in that or something. And sometimes they're like, no, we have a fixed fee. It's that, So, it doesn't matter to me. So I think it's fine.
People want to have a sense of security, which indeed is an illusion, but that's another topic. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you have the range, then there is a certain type of control there as well.
True. Yeah.
So that helps. And it's also funny because you give an anchor point. So in the kind of sales kind of way, you can say, well, it's between this and that, so they know. Yeah. Okay, it's not below and it's not above. It's
there's a bandwidth. Yeah. 2 more questions, of which the first is a personal question. Is there an experiment, Lennard, which you haven't dared to start yet, which you are a little bit intimidated by, or which has been going around in your mind, but you haven't dared to start it? Is there such a thing?
Well, there is one that we actually did start but didn't follow through with it, which I think is still a great idea. So we made an app which we call the Sentiment app, which decides the salary also depending upon the month that you're in with the revenue that you have. So you get a certain amount of money in, certain amount of cost that you have, like the office building and beer and whatever you want to have, and then what you, and then maybe a certain margin that you take out of it, or something like 10% or 15% margin that you want to leave, and then the rest is for the salaries, and then that salary is distributed in a normal distribution way, based on ratings that colleagues give to each other, with one score, also with the feeling score. So I said one rule to rule them all, but also one score to rule them all there, which is feeling, which is sentiment, just how I feel about you, the company, with the company in mind. So that, not that I like you necessarily alone, but also that you have certain added value to the company. Yeah. And then your salary can fluctuate every month, because then if we're having a good month, then everybody has a high. If we're drinking a lot of beer, then we have a high cost, then everybody goes a little bit down. If you're someone new, then the cost or the salary is distributed among more people, then everybody gets a little bit less. So everybody's far more conscious about the costs and the money that comes in.
And you've started this, but you haven't followed through, you said.
Yeah. So what we did, we made the app.
Yeah.
We piloted it with, and in the pilot, what we did, we said to everybody, okay, you have your own salary that you have right now. That's going to stay for now. And in the pilot, you will see what you will earn if we did use the app. So you see the difference.
Okay.
You have the salary right now here, and maybe it's higher or lower, the same. Yeah. And then this also gives you certain information about how you're doing within the company.
Yeah.
Are you doing really well, according to colleagues, or are you doing not so well?
Yeah.
You need to step up your game, because if we actually use the app, you will earn a lot less.
Yeah.
So I thought it was really cool, but a lot of colleagues thought it was really scary, of course. So that's eventually why we didn't use it. Yeah. In a nutshell.
And but they did get the feedback from the app, so they get to see it. But
yeah, so they used it. So they rated colleagues.
Yeah.
And everything in the app is transparent, so I can see what you give to another, what kind of rating you will give to another person.
Yeah.
So everything you can see, so that there's no two people friending up or teaming up to give each other really high scores and the rest lower.
Yeah.
Then the whole group will put them down, and so they have less of a salary. So
everything is also, again, transparent. Yeah.
Yes.
Very interesting.
So yes. So that was a really funny, and we still have the app like in the freezer or somewhere. Yeah. But it needs to change, and it needs to be a little bit updated. And you can use like smaller version of the app for like if you have a company that uses bonuses or something. Yeah. You can let the colleagues decide with the app on the bonus or something, or give each other ratings. But we wanted to do it with salaries, just a full-blown thing. But I didn't get that through. So that was a little bit of a shame. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Last question. And I like to close with this question actually all the time. Yeah. What important question about experimenting in life and work didn't I ask, which I definitely should have asked?
Maybe where does it come from? Which I will answer then.
Yeah.
So I think my kind of experimental personality maybe is twofold. So one, I have a very I don't know if you know the Big Five of personality. Yeah. Yeah. So one of the things is one of the dimensions there is neuroticism, and the other part is emotional stability in that dimension. And I have, because I did this personality questionnaire a couple of times, I score like 0 from, like, if neuroticism is 100 and emotional stability is 0, I score 0. Like there's like this big thing. I'm very emotionally stable, which helps to make changes, etc. And also openness to experience is high with me. So then I'm more inclined to do new things. But also, and this is a little bit of a story then, I used to do a kind of acrobatic type of sport, kind of free running, but not really free running. I wasn't jumping buildings, but I was making flips. Yeah. And in order to do like a backflip, you need to go over your fear. And because it's really scary to go backwards, your whole body says, don't do this shit. And so you need to push through the boundary and make the leap. And so what we had, like I told you already about, you know, the fuck it mentality. This is where it comes from, is we had this group of guys where we did this sport. And so the mantra was fuck it. And then people were basically slapping each other on the backs saying, fuck it, fuck it, fuck it, you can do it, fuck it, you know? And then you would do it. And so that's the way I learned different types of crazy flips and stuff, which I can't do because my knees are busted now. But that really helped me, you know, push through that boundary and, you know, do that a couple of times. Then you see that what lies behind the boundary is really interesting.
Yeah.
And that basically got me into this mode of, you know, trying to always experiment a little bit further and do a little bit of more crazy stuff.
Yeah. So
I
it
think
started early.
Yeah. I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, you know, and I think if people do it a couple of times and they really get a high out of it, then and you see that it works, then you're more incentivized for yourself to do it more.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, Lennard, I really appreciate it. And I very much enjoyed this spontaneous interview because someone else canceled and you were so kind on a short notice to take its place.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been for a good reason, and I'm really grateful for our talk. And I'll definitely stay in touch, and I hope to meet you for a tea or a coffee or something.
Yeah, you're most welcome.
Yeah,
so
I'll come and visit you, crazy bunch.
Yeah, you can. Doors open, like for real. So
awesome.
Come in. Yeah.
Hey, have a great day, and we'll be in touch. I'll send you the links because tomorrow is my deadline. I'll send you the links and everything when it's ready.
Cool, Julius.
Appreciate it. Have a great day. Thanks.
Same to you.
Bye.